It takes a lot to get me angry, but when I am, I just can't let go. People seem a little aggressive around here.
Roadhouse is directed by Doug Liman, and it's of course the remake of the 1989 classic movie Roadhouse starring Patrick Swayze. This time around playing John Dalton, we have Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal is one of my favorite actors of all time. I really love his performances, so when I heard they were rebooting this thing, I thought that's a little strange, but then they were like, and we're adding Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's ripped. I was like, all right, this movie could be a blast. This movie could be a lot of fun. And then they said, hey, this is dropping straight to Amazon Prime. And I don't really know how to gauge streaming movies anymore because we've gotten some really good streaming movies and we've gotten some really bad streaming movies. So there's no really in-between streaming movies. They're either really good, and I don't know why they didn't go to theaters, like Hellraiser in 2022 or Prey in 2022, or there's just about everything that came out on streaming last year and it's like, this is why streaming movies exist. So I didn't really know what to expect in this movie, but I sat down in my hotel room last night, had some candy, watched the movie, and I'm here to say that Roadhouse is a movie that was meant for streaming. Let's talk about it. So this movie opens with John Dalton doing his thing, messing people up for money. He gets invited to come out to the Roadhouse and protect it for $5,000 a week. It's an opportunity that he doesn't feel like he can turn down, so he goes and he immediately starts messing people up. Now, that's in my YouTube short that I put out for this movie yesterday, where I paused it and I was like, okay, the dialogue's not great, but I'm enjoying the action. I'm enjoying him going around. I enjoy seeing Jake Gyllenhaal as this badass. He's kind of believable again. He is ripped. He is fighting people. And in the first scene where he actually fights people, he's slapping them around, and it's kind of fun to watch. And I was hoping that was the vibe we were going to get for the rest of this movie. Sort of over the top 80s throwback where we know it's cheesy, not a big deal. That's what I was hoping we were going to get. We didn't really get that. But what you end up getting in this movie for the plot is that the son of a gangster wants to level the Roadhouse so he can build something. It is very important for him to build right there. Nowhere else in the country. He has to build right there on the Roadhouse. So he sends his goons to sort of try and scare off the owner, but when she hires Jake Gyllenhaal, they then have to ante up and hire a goon, and they hire Conor McGregor, who comes in like he has not missed a beat since his UFC days, trash talking everybody, starts fighting people. And honestly, that movie sounds like a fun movie still. While I would have preferred like a cheesy throwback movie, that movie could have worked for me. It didn't, but it's one of those movies that's currently streaming, and if you want to watch it and that sounds like an interesting plot to you, you should check it out on Amazon Prime. It's currently streaming there for free if you're an Amazon Prime member. With all that said, let's get into my positives and some of my negatives. My first positive for this movie has to be Jake Gyllenhaal's performance. Look, I enjoy watching him in this movie be a tough guy, slap people around, throw them out of the bar, and then like, all right, hey, I'll drive you to the hospital. There was some humor in that. There was also some realness in that, like, hey, I don't want all your hospital bills and I don't want you to call the cops on me, so I'm gonna get you out of this bar, I'm gonna smack you up a bit, but I'll also drop you off at the hospital. So there's something endearing about that. There's something enjoyable with that. So I really liked his character, and I don't think you're ever gonna replace Patrick Swayze and the coolness that he brought. Jake Gyllenhaal definitely doesn't get to that like cool factor that Swayze had, but he is a great actor, and I think he does a good enough job in this movie. But unfortunately, that's where my likes end. I said in my short that is my shining light for this movie is Jake Gyllenhaal. It's a great thing that they got him, because if you just threw anybody into that role, like a no-name actor, and like, yeah, we're rebooting Roadhouse and this is how it's going to be, I think this would tank even further in my book, because you wouldn't have that performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. So that's my only positive. We'll move on to my negatives. My first negative for this movie has to be the storyline and the dialogue. Now, I talked about the dialogue a little bit in my YouTube short. It really is god-awful. There's not one believable line of dialogue in this entire movie. None of the characters seem to have any chemistry with each other, and it all comes from that atrocious dialogue. It really does. Like, there's this supposed to be a sweet moment between Dalton and a girl that he met who works at a hospital, and they're on a beach, and you just don't feel any chemistry between the two of them. But the lines of dialogue that they're giving to each other just are cringy, and they're not over the top in a good way. They're over the top in the way that, like, hey, did AI write this scene? In fact, did AI write this movie? Because that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like you told a computer, hey, I want to remake Roadhouse, but I want it to feel like it's filmed in 2024. And AI was like, I don't really understand that, but I'm going to do my best with it. So here's a bunch of dialogue. And they were like, this is a good script. We're going to run with this. maybe we need to add something else to this movie. What is it going to be? What could it be? What do we need to add? And then that leads me to my next negative, Conor McGregor. Now, here's the thing. I had somebody comment on my short saying I really liked Conor McGregor's performance. Yes, his performance was wacky, over the top, crazy. He comes in trash talking people like only Conor McGregor can do, and then he fights people like only Conor McGregor can do. So there are some positives to Conor McGregor. However, his character feels wildly out of place even in this sort of made-up world of Roadhouse, because while you have the son of a gangster who has a biker gang that's working for him, or the sheriff that's working for him, having Conor McGregor there coming in as essentially Conor McGregor, like the first scene, he's completely naked and knocking out dudes, and it's like, all right, this is a little bit of a tone change. But then throughout the rest of the movie, he is a wild card that does not fit in with everything else. Also, it's storming outside. Not sure if you heard that. We're under a tornado watch here in Miami, but I'm going to push through this review unless the lights go out. And then I may push through the review anyway, because the lights going out doesn't hurt me. I just wanted to be John Dalton for a minute. Anyway, okay, the point is, moving on. But you do have Conor McGregor in this movie who is just completely out of place. And so while I understand people who may enjoy his over-the-top performance, hell, even my little brother who watched this movie last night and enjoyed it said, I loved Conor McGregor's performance. Yes, his performance was wacky and over the top. And if you enjoy Conor McGregor in real life, then I think you'll enjoy him in this movie. But again, he doesn't fit into it. There's nothing in this movie where it's like, oh yeah, Conor McGregor, makes total sense that you'd bring in a wild card like that. He doesn't fit the tone of the rest of the movie, so anytime he's in it, you're just kind of taken out of it even more. My final negative for this movie is actually the fight scenes, and that's something I didn't want to have happen. Listen, I was actually really excited for Roadhouse to come out, but the fight scenes in this movie, they are weirdly shot. Like, it's hard to explain it, but I'll do my best. Every time they get in a fight, it's like the camera moves angles so that they can fake punch each other. You don't get me wrong, there's some scenes where you see somebody take a shot to the face and you're like, did he actually get hit in the face? And I appreciated those scenes. But for the most part, in like the wild fight scenes where there's so many people fighting, it's like they had the camera on a zip line and they were just moving it around, and it just gets kind of dizzying. I didn't appreciate that in the fight scenes. I know that some people have no problem with that. That's an issue I have with the Bourne movies. Really like those movies, but the shaky cam thing, not my style. And while this isn't quite shaky cam, it is like the camera flying around the scene to maybe punch up the action a little bit more, and I didn't like that. And to me, I'd rather just have a straight up fight scene, keep the camera still, and do good choreographed fighting like you'd see in a John Wick movie. But in this movie, and I know John Wick's the bar for action, I said it, I know, I'm not comparing Roadhouse to John Wick, I'm just saying that I prefer sort of the action shots where everything's steady and they do a good choreographed job. Whereas in this movie, they looked like they were trying to hide so much of the action scenes, and I'm here to watch the action. I'm not here for the love story between John Dalton and the girl from the hospital. I'm not here for Conor McGregor and his grudge against the gangsters. Like, no, I'm here to watch the fight scenes, and most of the fight scenes just felt like they were fake. Like, I know they're fake, it's a movie, but they felt fake within the movie, if that makes sense. Overall, I will say that this is not the best remake I've ever seen, and it's not the best streaming movie I've ever seen. It's not a movie I would necessarily even recommend. However, if you're a big fan of Jake Gyllenhaal like me, you might want to check this movie out. And if you're a huge fan of Conor McGregor, because again, he acts just like the normal Conor McGregor, then I think you will enjoy this movie. There's a lot of cheese in this movie, there's a lot of over-the-topness in this movie, but it's over the top to a fault, in my opinion, and I can't recommend it. It's not a movie for me. Won't be a movie I go back to. Unfortunately, Roadhouse is just another movie I will leave in the past and move on to other movies. Oh well. But those are just my opinions because that's my review for Roadhouse. Guys, have you had a chance to see Roadhouse? If you have, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know where we agree or disagree on my positives and negatives, because you may have had a completely different experience with this, and I'd love to know that experience in the comment section down below. Finally, guys, if you like this review and you want to watch more, don't forget to hit the like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. All right, guys, we got to the end of my Roadhouse movie review, and it's another 2024 movie. 2024 hasn't been very good so far. I know that if you just started watching my channel recently, I probably sound more negative than positive, but I promise you I've had more positive reviews than negative ones in 2023. It's just 2024 has been off to a rough start, but I'm hoping for better movies in the future. In the meantime, if you want to watch more of my movie reviews, well, I've got all of my 2023 movie reviews right there, and I've got all of my 2024 movie reviews right there.